Good morning, everybody. It is Martin, the sales strategist, coming to you live from the Sales Cardio Fitness Studio this morning. We're beaming to you live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, as many channels as I could possibly fit in. And this is the first of what's going to be a weekly event where I'm welcoming special guests, business owners, to share their knowledge with the world. And today, I'm fortunate to be joined on the very first by Jeremy Biggs of MISIO. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey guys, and thank you so much, Martin. I'm privileged to be one of the first businesses to go live with you and have a conversation about what we're doing and what you're doing and just connecting. So thank you so much for the time today, and thanks to everyone for tuning in on this new innovation.
Great. Well, we're going to rip straight into it because we've got 30 minutes, and knowing that humans, we have a relatively short attention span, so we're going to keep it intriguing. We're going to keep it full, jam-packed, Jeremy. And the reason why I wanted you on first is that we've done a little bit of work together on your pitch deck, and I was really excited about what it is you do, because I think because initially I was a little bit environmental sustainability. What's that all about? But I'm curious, Jeremy, as to your business purpose and mission. So share what that is with us.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. And it's been wonderful working together with you as well, and helping us refine some of the messaging as well. I think for us at MISIO, our purpose as an organization, why we exist, is fundamentally to be a catalyst for positive change for the world. So what does that mean? That means, in one sentence, that we want to connect people with companies that are doing amazing things in the world to impact positive change for the world. And our mission is basically to align and connect millions of companies around the world with environment sustainability, or ESG, environment, social governance, so that they can not only accelerate their commercial growth in the near term, but also do the right thing by the planet as well.
Great. So a couple of things to spring up initially is, number one, you mentioned ESG. And so I'm assuming a lot of our listeners, viewers out there may not know what ESG is. And the second thing is, I'm a small business. Why should I care?
Yeah, 100%. So ESG, and I appreciate going here because I think it's important that people understand all these different acronyms and meanings behind words. But basically, if you could just put ESG and environment sustainability and all these things into one big word, it would be sustainability as a whole. ESG stands for environment, social, and governance. And it's the three core areas that companies are aligning to make sure that work they do with environment and supply chain, in respect of how they create their products and the impact that it has on the environment, is looked at, considered, and managed correctly. The social side is more about your team, your people, your stakeholders in your organization. How are you engaging with mutual inclusivity of various different social elements in society? And governance is the corporate governance on how you're running your company, and are you running your business ethically? Are you working with stakeholders and suppliers and other people in your business that align to your purpose, mission, and values in the right way? So that broadly gives you an overview of what ESG stands for. And the reason I love what we do right now is because we're innovating in the space. Historically, ESG has been something that is being talked about around investment. So if you're a company and you're looking to raise money, or you're looking to bring investors into your business, typically what investors are looking for right now are your financial reports and financial performance of your company. But most recently, we're also looking at these big companies looking for, and investors looking for, what are you doing that's protecting our environment? What are you doing that is aligning with social governance and how you run your business as a whole? And out of Europe and the US, big organizations are seeing that your financial performance and your sort of ESG sustainability criteria are at almost a similar level now in respect of how people view your organization as a whole. So the question was, why do you care, right? We're talking
particularly for small to medium-sized businesses. How could we possibly have an impact on the environment when you consider that? If I'm a plumber, if I'm an artist, if I'm a marketing organization, if I've got 3 staff, if I'm a solopreneur, what chance do I have of affecting the environmental outcome of this planet?
100%. And, I think this goes into a conversation of not being perfect, but creating a framework and a strategy around incremental improvement over time. And MISIO is a technology platform. That's the journey we want to take people on, as to where do you start, number one? How do you tell that story, number two? And then how do you align to some of the global standards that have been set around the world that the big organizations use, the big companies use? So I'll give you some data very quickly, but there's only about 40 to 50,000 companies globally that are actively reporting on these sustainability and ESG criteria. And the reason for this is that that's being mandated predominantly from stakeholders like big investors and shareholders and or government organizations. So if you can imagine big end of town, $100 million companies, they have got teams of people, they've got resources on the ground, they've got huge budgets investing into this specific area. And the bottom line is quite simple. They're doing it because, number one, there's lots of pressure. But number two, there's a proven, validated commercial return on that investment, where your cost of capital is much, much lower, and you're more likely to attract those stakeholders, investors, and shareholders into your company. So it's actually a massive priority. When we think about the small to medium enterprise, we know there's about 125 million companies around the world that are in that sort of SME space. And we don't have lots of resources. We don't have teams of people and budgets available to investigate and start the journey around how we align to this new sustainability world. So the question then is, what is the compelling reason for me to act as a small business owner? Why do I care about this specific area? And that goes directly into your line of questioning there, Martin. So for us in MISIO, our purpose is and our mission is to enable that SME sector for the 100 million companies around the world with the tools and the systems that they can start the journey and start progressing things. So that's all very good and well and sounds very altruistic, but the question I always get asked is, well, why do I care? Why should I care about this specific area? You know, the big guys are doing what they need to do. Why do I care about me being a smaller business, and what is the impact to me? And based on research, you know, we've got to recognize that we have got a new generation of customers that is coming to the workforce. So by 2025, we're going to have more millennials in the workforce than any other generation in history. And we've got to think about, what does that mean? So the younger generation has got a slightly different mission and a slightly different value or set of values, as it were. And I think if you think just beyond blockchain and cryptocurrency trading and Instagram followers and all the fun stuff that the young generation loves to do, TikTok videos and trying to get viral, like all the fun stuff, underneath all that layering is a generation that really cares deeply around social governance, cares deeply around environment, and deeply about what brands and businesses that they want to support. You know, and this is our opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point, because I just look at my growing up, you know, back all those years ago. You know, we kind of took the environment a little bit for granted because it was all green and there was nature everywhere. But now my son, who's just turned 21, is articulating views about environmental responsibility, care for the planet.
100%. You know, the best analogy I have here, if I can just quote one person, which is my son. When he was 9 years old, he's 10 now. When he was 9 years old, he came home from school, and he said, and this is, I don't know, but kids these days, they have a different perspective, but he says, Dad, in the context of the universe and space and time, if all of time was condensed into 24 hours, how long have humans been on the earth? And I was like, dude, that's a pretty big question, but okay, we'll go with it, right? And he said, Dad, it's been about 3 seconds. So I was like, wow, that is just to give you context of how little we really are in respect of how long the universe has been around and how long the earth has been around. And he says, Dad, if we don't start doing something about what we do every day, you know, with environment, we're not going to have a 4th second. Now,
wow.
This is a 9-year-old coming home from school and going, I need to think, I'm thinking about these things. So when we talk about teenagers, we talk about people in their 20s, you know, this younger generation is actively looking to support businesses and brands that are doing good work with sustainability and doing really good work with the principles of this ESG. So there's research and studies and information on this. And I can tell you right now that millennials specifically, the research is that 80% of millennials are more likely to support brands that have got a focus on environment and sustainability than other brands. And this is the clincher, they are willing to spend 35% more on products, right, if they support the right environmental criteria.
Yeah, wow. Those are massive statistics that any business owner out there really needs to start taking notice of, right?
Absolutely. And this is really the core reason why we care, why a small business owner should care. Particularly if we're, let's say we're a little bit older in our journey, we're in our 40s and our 50s and our 60s, and our psychology and the way we were brought up was a little bit different. So we might not necessarily relate to this story. But from a business perspective, our opportunity is to think about, what do I need to do over the next 3 to 5 years that will align and shape my brand to support this younger generation coming up. So whether
from a business owner's perspective, what you're actually saying is, whether you're on board with the environmental debate or not, if you're not on board with it, it could affect company profits and revenue down the track, because you're not going to resonate with the younger generation that's more on board with all this.
Absolutely, yeah. And it goes beyond that.
Sorry, just while we're on this, anyone that's listening, if you've got a question for Jeremy, just type into the chat bot, and Jeremy, we're more than happy to answer your questions as well. So, so that's interesting, Jeremy. So let me ask you, as part of the pitch deck that we did, so what's the big idea for MISIO? What's the big idea?
So the big idea for us is to connect people with brands and companies that are accelerating positive change for the world. And what that means is that we want to create a community and an ecosystem through our technology that helps companies share their stories. Number one, align them to that trajectory and that growth pathway, but fundamentally to share that story and share that journey as they're going along with this new generation of followers. So our platform has been developed to connect these two different individuals and businesses together, and measurably impact the company growth and revenue growth over time.
So I'm curious as to how you actually got to where you are. Like, what's your backstory? Why are you passionate about the environment? How did you decide to make a business out of it? And one thing I know about you, you're extremely passionate about this. So just join the dots for me. How did this all come about?
Yeah, so this journey for me started about 5 years ago, and I'd recently exited a business that I had set up and founded, and I shut the company down. And I reflected on why I decided to do that, and it was because that particular business was more aligned to commercial gain than doing really good for the planet. So I just got thinking about, like, what can I do that would be a purposeful, meaningful life, and I can make a difference for the world effectively, and what can I bring together with my skills, knowledge, and expertise that would make sense? So I've got a career in technology development. I've got 15 years experience with global supply chain and understanding how we distribute products. And I've got now, 8-9 years in terms of software technology development, advanced analytics, working with AI, working with machine learning, and all these tools. So bringing this all together, it got me thinking around, well, what are some of the biggest problems that we face in the world? Initially, the first version of MISIO was developing supply chain provenance and transparency, because I was curious about fashion apparel, and particularly, and understanding how are clothes made, where they're made. Does it involve, modern slavery or child labor in the production on clothing specifically? And 5 years ago, it was quite disappointing to go into the marketplace and recognize that a lot of the big, and I'm talking, brands that have got 1,000+ stores, the boards of those companies weren't necessarily open to disclosing this information or willing to learn too much about it. And the reason was that the information didn't exist. They didn't know what was going on themselves. So it was quite nascent. So for the last 5 years, we've been working on developing the supply chain provenance and transparency frameworks that we're now using today within the MISIO platform. And along the way, I was very fortunate to have been involved in some other companies, particularly recycling, where I was involved in creating this over here, which is the first confectionery wrapper made from post-consumer recycled soft plastic, which was an incredible project to work with Nestle on, and I was very privileged to be involved in that one. So, and my role and piece in this over here was, again, building out that sort of provenance transparency framework around how do we understand where did the material come from, how did it get processed, who processed it, and then what did it get made into, to tell the story about, recycled plastic into something that is quite meaningful. So on the back of that, chocolate. I can tell you right now, I've eaten about 2,000 Kit Kats in the last 2 years, and I've had enough.
So you're saving the planet eating chocolate.
One chocolate at a time. That's it.
Fantastic.
So on the back of that, when I exited that business to focus 110% of my energies on MISIO, because I recognized that I didn't want to silo that technology into one specific area. I wanted to create it for the whole world. I wanted that technology and the insights and knowledge to be meaningful, to help businesses make more money, grow, right? Save time and save costs. That became our fundamental core objective, but doing it in a way that helps our future planet.
Great. Well, that's a very noble cause, right? I mean, who doesn't want to save the planet? Who doesn't want to think that they have an input into it? Even if it is something small, because I guess, as you said, there was 125 million SMEs around the world. And I imagine your concept is, if every one of those businesses just did one thing today, one small thing that would help save the planet, that's 125 million actions, which will amount to a considerable groundswell.
Absolutely. And the ripple effect is quite interesting. Because of the knowledge that we have with supply chain transparency provenance, the way that we're setting up our solution is to also provide insight into what's going on in your supply chain as well. It forms part of your story. It makes no sense for you to have a really ethical business. Let's say you're manufacturing T-shirts, or you sell T-shirts, but your manufacturer uses kids to stitch them together. So it's important to create the ESG and the sustainability and the impact, understanding your stakeholders in your organization, including all of your suppliers. So it forms part of the overarching solution to understand and learn more about, like, who are your stakeholders in your organization.
So I'm imagining that you're bringing together the planet. So it's your mission is to connect all the millions of businesses together. So I imagine when you started out with this, you didn't think, oh, this is going to be easy. I'm just going to snap my fingers and everything's going to take care of itself. So what are the biggest challenges that you've faced to date in rolling out the MISIO platform? We're going to talk about it in a little bit in a minute, but what are the biggest challenges you've faced around that?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, and it's a very complicated space that is not really well known. So overarching everything is that there's a lack of knowledge and understanding within sustainability and ESG as a whole. And typically, again, big organizations have had the resources and energy to learn and collaborate with global organizations like United Nations Global Compact, Global Reporting Initiative, IR, and other businesses that are specifically in place with billions of dollars, by the way, in terms of budgets to spend on this area, influencing government decisions and so forth. But if you're outside of that top tier of business, the amount of knowledge and resources is very, very limited. So some of the challenges that we've had building up MISIO is thinking through the process. Well, how do we add value to companies so that they can thrive today commercially, but also take those first steps whilst aligning to the same principles that these big organizations have led with effectively. And between the two is basically a resource cost gap. And that's what the technology is designed to do. That's why we're a technology platform, because we can then enable tools and systems in our technology that will help both of those equations in a far more cost-effective way. As an SME business owner, you're not going to spend millions of dollars in this space, but you do need to have strategic alignment, and you do need to have a little bit of budget to go, well, let's keep track of our progress as well.
Totally. So what is MISIO? Here's a chance for you to pitch. We've worked on your pitch deck, so I'm watching. But so if someone watching this says, hey, look, Jeremy's making sense. I'd like to be a part of this. What is it that we're actually buying into? What is it that MISIO does? What is the MISIO platform?
If I may, I might reframe it just a little bit, because I think what's important is that businesses just recognize and just think about, if you do not start taking some action around ESG and sustainability as a whole, and start thinking about how do I incorporate these things into my business, there's a couple of big risks that we're going to play with. Recognize that, again, by 2025, we have more millennials in the workforce than any generation in history. And that as we stand today, 2022, 60% of millennials in the workforce are in decision-making positions in companies, right? So there's a lot of power behind this generation coming up. And if you don't align and showcase your story and tell people objectively and transparently on what you're working on with authenticity and add value, then you run the risk of losing stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, I'm being quite broad, but there's a couple of stakeholders to consider. And the first one, obviously, if you're raising investment, that makes sense, and shareholders, that makes sense, because this is where the sort of principles of ESG have come from. That's the origin roots. But you also got to think about, which suppliers are going to work with my business if I don't align? Which customers am I going to lose if I don't start doing something about this and start going on this journey? And I believe the biggest one, which we haven't seen come to Australia just yet, but there's a bit of work out of the UK and Europe and the US already, excuse me, is lending. And I'll just let that drop for a second. But if you can imagine right now, if ESG and sustainability reporting and progress is becoming important for investors and for shareholders and for customers and for your suppliers, then next time you go to the bank might be asking you in maybe 3 to 5 years, might be asking you, well, can you please provide me the reporting and show me the progress that you're making towards a more sustainable future? And they will likely penalize you if you don't. Right? It goes back to cost of capital. So the risk that you run is that if you don't start thinking about incorporating some of these elements into the business day to day and start showcasing and highlighting these things, you may start losing some of those stakeholders.
Wow, that's a big one. Absolutely. And I work with another business in the ESG space, and I can tell you that what you just said is absolutely true. This is coming. It is coming. It might not be next year, it might not be the year after, but that is coming for sure.
Absolutely. And why not think about aligning your business to a bigger outcome than yourself, your purpose, helping to positively impact the world, to work on projects and work on products that you can develop that are sustainably produced, packaging that uses less plastic, and leverage the innovations that these big companies are doing to make your business more successful in the near term. That's our core objective. MISIO wants to work with companies that are innovators. We don't want to work with everyone. We just want to work with companies that are innovators in the space, that believe what we believe, that want a better future. And our job is to make them commercially successful as those innovators in the space.
Great. Brilliant. So and I'm pleased you reframed that, because that's given us a good indication of why we should take action, why it's important. So what's the next step?
For us, the next step, well, we're still in respect of our product, I suppose. But if you want to register, pre-register on the platform, very simple. Just go to misio.com.au. You can register a profile. You can set up a company profile, and you can start that journey today. And we would be delighted to collaborate with you on how you progress ESG sustainability as a whole, and create some good measurable return on investment as well.
And this platform that they're signing into, and I'm an early adopter as well, and it's just, so you're early stages, because I think you mentioned earlier that you're doing your official launch in March. Is that right? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, correct. So right now we are accepting pre-registrations, again, strategic early adopters, strategic industry sponsors. We're working very closely with large institutions around the world, like United Nations Global Compact, to align our strategy and our frameworks to what the United Nations has put in place for the world. So you can pre-register today and be part of that journey and help us to refine that product to add as much value as we can. But the 3rd of March this year, we have an official brand launch, and we'll have we have some super exciting stuff that we will be showing the world. and it'll be jaw dropping and it'll blow your mind.
Great. So the message there is watch this space. It's all part of the intrigue frame, which is all part of the sales process. Is that right, Jeremy?
100%. That's right. And we love a bit of intrigue. It's all where it's at. But in all seriousness, we have got an incredible team of talent that are really passionate about delivering positive change to the world. We've got some incredible knowledge and expertise on how we do this. And because we're aligning with the United Nations Global Compact, GRI, these big reporting frameworks that the big boys use, this is going to be a superpower solution for small business.
Fantastic. So I'm curious, just before we roll up, we'll be getting out of here in about 4 minutes. So we worked on a pitch deck. We worked on a pitch deck with you for a couple of months. We worked on that. So I'm curious in regards to what were the biggest learnings and the biggest takeaways from working on your pitch deck and getting that messaging to a format. What did you take away from that process?
I think the biggest takeaway, and I might just give a bit of a pre-frame to this one as well, but this is a very complicated space, and there are lots of moving parts and lots of dependencies as well. And although we understand these dependencies intimately, we understand the impact, the implication, how to use things in a certain way and build the technology to make it scale as well. From a messaging perspective, it's very hard for us to articulate a clear, concise message that people will understand. And, what we've discussed today, Martin, is probably less than 1% in respect of core value proposition through our journey over the next 10 years. It's just the starting blocks, right? So working with you is fantastic because we ended up able to distill that message down, identify that right now, like why do we care effectively, right? What is the impact of my business if I don't take action? How do I articulate this in a nice, concise way? And as a result, we've ended up with the messaging we have today. So deeply appreciative for your input and your assistance in that regard. But all I can say is, as you said, just watch the space because there's lots more to come.
It was fun. Great. So Jeremy, appreciate your time this morning. And it's been awesome. So anyone that wants to connect with Jeremy, MISIO, was it MISIO.com? Is that the
MISIO.com.au? Or you can email me directly, which is just jeremy@misio.com.au. And happy to have any questions, any conversations, connections, meetings, and connect anytime.
Great. And sign up as an early adopter. Hey, Jeremy, that's great. So everybody, that's the first in the sales cardio fitness studio with Jeremy Biggs this morning. This company, this guy is going places. Keep an eye out. And I do foresee a time in the next 5 years where most businesses on the planet are going to be part of the MISIO platform. So get on there, be an early adopter, and don't miss out on this once in a lifetime opportunity. So to everybody out there, from my sales heart to yours, remember, a sales fit business is a happy business, and catch you all next week.